Hello and welcome to Lore of the Cards, the series that looks to find the lore hidden in your Hearthstone deck. Last time we covered the Genie of Zephyrs and looked at the lore of a race of wind elementals called the Jinn. Today we look at our first class card of League of Explorers, the Obsidian Destroyer. The art of the card is by Anton Zemzakov, a Russian artist currently based in Moscow. Zemzakov lists Warcraft as his favourite game, and a browse through his deviant art portfolio shows a great love for the franchise. Among many illustrations of his own design, he also has a great number of Warcraft pictures that are featured in the now discontinued trading card game, or Hearthstone. His art can be seen on Scarlet Purifier, Dragonhawk Rider, the most OP power creep card in the game, Ice Rager, and of course, the Obsidian Destroyer. The Obsidian Destroyer debuted in the franchise in Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, where it appeared as a unit for the Undead Scourge. The true beginnings of the Destroyer in Warcraft lore, however, take us way back in Azeroth's history, when the Titans reshaped the world. The Titans wrested control of Azeroth away from its primordial masters, the chaotic old gods, to create a planet of order. The Titans created several races to aid them in their work reshaping Azeroth. One of the species created were the Tol'vir, the race to which the Obsidian Destroyer belongs. The Titans entrusted the Tol'vir to guard their repositories and machinery after they had left Azeroth. The Tol'vir of Uldaman, hidden by a cloaking device, were to hide the secrets of that region, that it was a giant superweapon that would cleanse Azeroth of all life if the Titans thought it necessary. Considering the Tol'vir's history stretches for millennia, we know very little about them. Many races of Azeroth have only been able to begin investigating this race since the Cataclysm expansion. The Tol'vir are a tribal society, with each tribe being ruled by their own kings or emperors. What little we know of Tol'vir rulers can be discovered through quests and archaeology. One mundane quest has players thumping date-stealing pygmies with the Taharet Dynasty mallet, a beautifully designed ornament of the only named Tol'vir dynasty, now being used like a common club. This could mean a couple of things: that in the harsh time of the Cataclysm the Tol'vir will use even treasured artifacts to survive, or perhaps this dynasty was somehow disgraced. Heroes are able to discover the ring of the boy emperor, Ninjata, among other artifacts belonging to him. One of these is a small mosaic created by the boy emperor, possibly giving an insight into Tol'vir art and education. The young emperor's coronation was met with much celebration. A rule of greatness and prosperity was predicted. Famine would end and glory would return to the Ramkahen tribe. This would not come to pass, as the ruler died very young, even before work could begin on the grand palace planned for him. Ninjata seemed to be a sentimental ruler, having a statue carved in memory of his cat, Shalix. All that remains of the emperor now are petrified organs within a canopic jar. Another lovely discovery for the archaeologists of Azeroth. The pendant of the Scarab Storm tells us of an event during the rule of the pharaoh Tebetep. During his reign, a plague of snakes infected the Virnal River. The Tol'vir tried their best to rid the river of the serpents, but nothing worked. The river was later hit by a second plague. Desert scarabs made their home there. Rather than prove another nuisance, the scarabs fought the snakes. The creatures killed one another until none remained and peace was restored to the river. One of World of Warcraft's premium mounts is linked to the Tol'vir. The Winged Guardian is said to have been constructed by the Titans and was quite recently found in an ancient tomb within the continent of Uldaman. It is suspected that this mount once served a Tol'vir princess, perhaps doubling as mount and pet. High-ranking members of Tol'vir society, high priests, kings, emperors, etc., wear animal headdresses. It is theorised that these are worn through reverence of the Titans and the animal guardians of Azeroth. One thing has remained consistent in the Tol'vir's history: their dedication to their creators to keep watch over their charge. New culture has formed, cities built and traditions changed, but this purpose has remained, a dedication that has sometimes led to their downfall. Approximately 16,000 years ago, a long war was fought between an insectoid race known as the Ahn'qiraj and the once vast troll empires. Both sides fought with all their might, but neither won a decisive victory. Eventually, the trolls managed not to destroy the Ahn'qiraj, but split their kingdom. They would settle in 3 different locations. Those that settled in the lands that would later become Northrend later evolved into the Nerubians. Those that settled in the deserts of Silithus would become the Ahn'qiraj, and those that settled in what would become Pandaria became the Mantid. 2 of the Ahn'qir groups found themselves in conflict with the Tol'vir. The Ahn'qir that travelled north found the Tol'vir in the subterranean kingdom that they would later call Azjol-Nerub. Ill-equipped to fight the swarming Ahn'qir, the Tol'vir were defeated, and those that survived the conflict were enslaved. As these Ahn'qir underwent their adaptation to Nerubian, they appropriated the Tol'vir's architecture, merely modifying it to suit their needs. Soon, the Nerubians became the dominant force of Northrend. That was until the Lich King came, not all too long ago. The bloody War of the Spider saw the Nerubians defeated by the Lich King's seemingly endless undead host. When the Nerubians were killed, the Lich King was able to raise them and bring them into his armies, his psychic abilities dominating their will. With most of the Nerubians and their kingdoms now under his thrall, this Lich King also commanded their Tol'vir slaves. With Northrend now his territory, the Lich King sought to strike out at the Eastern Kingdoms. The war that followed saw the undead army that would become known as the Scourge savage the human kingdom of Lordaeron and the Elven kingdom of Quel'Thalas. The ongoing war eventually saw the Lich King's forces make use of the Tol'vir in battle. The Tol'vir floated onto the battlefield as grim sculptures. The Obsidian statues, as they were called, inspired allies and struck fear into foes. The Tol'vir floated upon a base, seemingly lifeless, unsettling glowing green eyes standing out against their black stone bodies. The statues were able to heal wounded soldiers or replenish the mana supplies of the Scourge spellcasters. If threatened, the statues would blast their foes with electrical energy, no emotion or exertion showing upon their face. At the whim of their undead masters, the Tol'vir were able to shatter their restrictive base and take flight, becoming the chilling Obsidian Destroyers. For unknown reasons, these Tol'vir seem to have developed an insatiable hunger for magic. Imbuing their attacks with magic gave the Destroyers stronger strikes that damaged enemies in an area. Those that sought to magically buff their allies soon found these benefits being devoured by the Destroyer, the grim stone effigy devouring the benefit and striking its victim with crippling pain. When the Destroyer's magical energy was spent, it would draw upon an ally's reserves and continue its relentless assault. Spellcasters were easy prey for the mad Tol'vir, the creature's stone bodies being immune to magic. The Ahn'qir that travelled to Silithus also came in contact with the Tol'vir. Yet again, the Tol'vir were overwhelmed, and the Ahn'qir took over what would later be named Ahn'qiraj. This city was no ordinary Titan research facility. It also acted as a prison for the old god Cthulhu, imprisoned by the Titans millennia ago. Cthulhu was stirring against his captivity and sought to bring wanton chaos to Azeroth again. He would use the Ahn'qir in order to achieve this, changing them to the Ahn'qiraj. Still bitter from their defeat at the hands of the trolls, the Ahn'qiraj sealed themselves within their new kingdom, and over time began amassing a fearsome army. Around 1,000 years before the first war between orcs and humans, the Ahn'qiraj unleashed their forces upon Silithus, and the War of the Shifting Sands began. The Night Elves did their best to resist the advance of the Ahn'qiraj, but after months of resistance, the Ahn'qiraj began to push the Night Elves back. The assault from the insectoids was so threatening that even the bronze dragons became involved in the war, giving the elves much needed reinforcement. The dragons were able to slaughter wave upon wave of the Ahn'qiraj's foot soldiers, the Silithid, with very little damage to their own ranks. The Ahn'qiraj were not well enough equipped to deal with creatures of such vast magical power, so the twin emperors of the Ahn'qiraj turned to the whispers of their dark master for guidance. Veclor is credited with the creation of the Ahn'qiraj's breed of Obsidian Destroyer. After many failures, it was thought the Emperor created the structures from scratch, but thanks to what we now know of the Tol'vir, it is more likely he experimented with the cat-like creatures. In the end, Veclor was able to produce a destroyer that would turn the tide of battle for the Ahn'qiraj, Cthulhu providing the energy to fuel the Destroyer's dark powers. Like the later destroyers of the Scourge, these ones too had an affinity for magic, able to absorb vast quantities from living beings. Not only this, but they were also able to focus the accumulated energies into a devastating attack. The dragons struggled to adapt their battle tactics around these new foes, having become accustomed to fighting enemies that could not strike them from afar. The destroyers were so effective that the armies of the elves and the dragons never found an effective way to counter them. As the war grew more desperate, the Bronze Dragons drafted in the help of the other flights, and with a mighty push led by the son of Nozdormu, Ahn'qiraj, the armies of Azeroth were able to push the Karaji back to their kingdom and seal them away. The memory of the devastating power of the Obsidian Destroyers haunting the dragons that survived the war. Centuries passed, the Karaji once again seething with rage at their defeat, their master slowly gaining in power. In vanilla World of Warcraft, heroes gathered supplies in a massive and coordinated effort to bring down the gate of Ahn'qiraj and defeat the Karaji once and for all. After surviving the initial onslaught of the servants of Cthulhu, heroes were able to venture into his domain, where they discovered the Obsidian Destroyers. The most powerful of the destroyers was Moam. At the time it was said Moam was created by the Twin Emperors, but the new information about the Tol'vir introduced since Cataclysm suggests this lore may have been retconned. At the end of the War of the Shifting Sands, several dragons sacrificed themselves to seal the gate of Ahn'qiraj. It was thought they were dead, but in actuality, Arygos the Blue, Marithra the Green and Kalistraz the Red were now prisoners of Cthulhu. These three dragons were being used by the Old God to fuel Moam, with a dominance over magic that many spellcasters could only dream of. When heroes came to fight the Obsidian Terror, it was able to drain the magic from their bodies and trample them underfoot. Moam could use his strength to create giant arcane explosions and could even concentrate it to form allies made of raw magical energy. Like the other fiends that stood before the heroes, Moam was eventually destroyed. Other lesser Obsidian Destroyers also roamed Ahn'qiraj, but their powers paled when compared to Moam's. Like Moam, they were able to use the mana pool of enemy spellcasters to their advantage. With the defeat of Cthulhu, the threat of the Karaji was no more. Tol'vir were not seen again in Warcraft until years after this, when the Cataclysm took place, due to the Black Dragon aspect Deathwing returning to Azeroth. His re-entry was so traumatic the entire world was torn asunder. Not only was the land of Azeroth itself damaged, but so too was a piece of Titan technology. The cloaking device that until now had left a huge region hidden from the people of Azeroth. One that had once only been a rumour. Uldaman. Deathwing travelled to Uldaman before either the Alliance or Horde could get there, and discovered a large population of Tol'vir. This population was made up of three tribes, the Nefeset, Orsis and Ramkahen, who all lived in relative peace with one another, all dedicated to defending the secrets of Uldaman. Unlike the Tol'vir used by the Scourge and Karaji, these beasts had been inflicted by the Curse of Flesh. Before suffering their defeat at the hands of the Titans, the Old Gods were able to infect many of the Shaper's creations with this curse. Titan constructs were frequently made from either metal or stone, hardy materials that made them naturally resistant to the manipulative corruption of the Old Gods. The Old Gods devised a way of transforming metal and stone to weaker flesh and bone. The Curse of Flesh made the Titans' creations more susceptible to the Old Gods' corruptive influence. The Titans did their best to cure the curse, but in the end found it impossible. The Old Gods' infestation of Azeroth and the beings that dwelled on its surface was so deep that to kill them was to kill Azeroth. To preserve the world, the Titans decided to instead imprison these horrific beings. With the Old Gods in captivity, the Titans were able to balance and preserve Azeroth, but many of their creations would forever be affected by the curse. It would appear that the Tol'vir of Uldaman were among the unfortunate. When Deathwing came, he offered these Tol'vir something they never thought possible: a return to their old stone forms. There was a catch, however. Deathwing was a servant of the old gods. Once the gentle and wise Earthwarder Neltharion, the old god's whispers drove him insane, and 10,000 years ago, he became Deathwing. The dragon's endgame was to restore the world of chaos his masters once ruled over. Deathwing's offer also came with an ultimatum, that the Tol'vir join him or be crushed. The Nephset tribe were the first approached by Deathwing's allies, the wind elementals led by Ahn'qiraj, and offered this choice. They chose to serve the aspect of death and become stone once more. While a select few of the tribe opposed this agreement, the tribe were arrogant, believing that with their stone bodies returned to them, they would be able to defy their new master. The Orsis tribe were the next approached, but would not shun the ancient duty to protect their creator's legacy. The Windlord Ahn'qiraj buried the tribe's settlement in a savage sandstorm that left few alive. This action did not break the will of the Ramkehen tribe, who on the whole opposed Deathwing and the Nephset, sparking civil war in Uldaman. Heroes of Azeroth managed to arrive in Uldaman around the time of the Nephset's transformation. As they travelled into the unknown land, they were dumbstruck by the land's beauty, ancient tombs yet to be explored, and finely created statues of the cat-like Tol'vir. As they pondered where to explore first, they were attacked and captured by a group of pygmies, who took them to the Nephset to try and claim a reward. Perhaps the Tol'vir had expected the heroes, being informed by Deathwing, and had made the pygmy population aware of the rewards they could reap. The heroes broke out of their prison, defeating their stone guard, and were able to see the wind elemental Siamat transforming several Nephset. With help from the captured Ramkehen Prince Nadun, the heroes were able to escape and make it to the town of Ramkehen. The Tol'vir had clearly evolved beyond what they once were, creating their own towns around the Titan facilities they were sworn to protect. They were not extravagant, simple homes of mud and brick sufficed, but the decorations found within were often breathtaking. Nadun introduced the Alliance and Horde to his brother, King Phaeris, who struck up a cordial relationship with the Alliance and Horde. When the heroes went to investigate Orsis, it had already been buried. As the heroes aided the Ramkehen against the Nephset and Ahn'qiraj, they also investigated the Titan structures, and what they found from their investigation of ruins like the Halls of Origination disturbed them. Uldaman, the entirety of Uldaman that the Tol'vir had been trusted to defend, was a Titan weapon. A weapon that not too long ago was almost activated. As the Alliance and the Horde battled the Lich King in Northrend during the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, which would end in the King's defeat, they also fought another great evil, the awakening Old God, Yogg-Saron. While they did subdue the Old God, the risk was not over. When Yogg-Saron awoke, he corrupted his jailers to serve him. The head jailer, Loken, was too far gone to save, so he had to be killed. Upon the death of Loken, a distress signal was sent out to one of the Titan's servants, Algalon the Observer. Algalon came to Azeroth and was to judge if the planet was to be cleansed of corruption and reshaped again from scratch. This would have meant eradicating all life on Azeroth. In order to do this, Algalon would need a powerful weapon, and Uldaman was that weapon. Luckily, heroes were able to prevent Algalon from activating it. This also indicated that the Tol'vir were not completely in the dark as to what was happening around Azeroth, as communications were established between Titan facilities. With help from the Alliance and Horde, the Ramkehen were able to drive the Nephset out of their main bastion of Nephset City, slaying the tribe's leader, Dark Pharaoh Takan. The Nephset fell back to their last remaining bastion of power, the lost city of the Tol'vir, which housed a powerful prisoner. After Siamat had turned the Nephset to stone, he was left drained, and the Tol'vir turned on him, making a bid for independence. The dark magic used to change the Nephset back had forever twisted the tribe to become aggressive to all that stood in their way. Not all the tribe betrayed Deathwing, as several could be found in the staging ground of Ahn'qiraj's army, the Vortex Pinnacle. The Horde, Alliance and Ramkehen launched one final attack on the Nephset tribe, slaughtering all that stood against them in the lost city of the Tol'vir, as well as their prisoner, Siamat. Very few Nephesset remained. Those left alive were put on trial. Nantaret and Buthet did not repent their crimes, quite the opposite, expressing their regret that they had not put more Arygos to death. Found guilty, the 2 Nephesset were sentenced to death, their bodies crushed to pieces. All that remains now of the Nephesset tribe are the few that saw through Deathwing's deceit and joined the other tribes to fight against their own. The Ahn'qiraj tribe's defiance against Deathwing was further rewarded when his servant Ahn'qiraj was defeated by the Alliance and Horde, and even later after Deathwing himself fell. So, there you have it, what little we know about the mysterious Tol'vir race, represented in the Obsidian Destroyer. I really hope you all enjoyed this one. Any positive or negative feedback is really appreciated in the comments. If you've enjoyed the art, all the artists I could find are in the description below. If you want to help out the channel, or have the will to stand against Deathwing, hitting the like button, sharing and subscribing go a long way towards that. Of course, if you're easily deceived by evil entities, then you can hit the dislike button in service of the old gods. Next time will be what I foresee as a short episode, the Anubisath Sentinel. Until then guys, happy Hearthstoning. I'll finally allow myself to play Uldaman. Hype!